Governor, we've obviously been talking to a lot of people and on what has happened yesterday with the Department of Education.
Right.
Is this a message to others? Is this a message to school boards across the state about charter schools?
It's really not. I mean, it's really. I mean, I don't think the school board here left us with an option, just like anywhere else that doesn't follow a state law. So we weren't trying to send a message. Like I said, this wasn't something we were eager to do. But when the legislature passes a law, our responsibility is to enforce it, and it's no different in any other area.
And then Metro schools and several other people shot back that there's no such thing as administrative costs in the BEP. I mean, there are non-classroom things, but eventually it works its way into the classroom.
Ultimately, obviously, with a school like anything else, ultimately everything you're doing should be applied to the classroom. So I understand their argument. We tried as much as we could to keep. The state funds a portion of Metro schools like it does every other school, and that is divided into administrative and classroom. And so we tried to apply it to administratives, again, to lessen the impact on students as much as possible.
Another thing I think a lot of us have heard is that there's people just saying, couldn't you all just have gotten together? I mean, with part of education and Metro, and
we really tried. I mean, again, they had a vote. We said, hey, that's not how the law works. Their attorney said, that's not how the law works. We said we have a responsibility to enforce the law, and we will. And so when they the second time vote that way, it just didn't leave us with any alternatives.
Governor, I got to go back to this.
Okay.
On 816, you said,
right,
ultimately we would have to think about what we would do if the Metro School Board doesn't go along with what the law is. That being said, threatening money, that's not the business we're in. We're in the business of educating children. So you said that you weren't going to threaten money a month ago. What changed?
Well, what changed is that for the second time they said, okay, we're going to willfully go against state law. And so my immediate reaction when they did that was, I'm not going to come out the gate, threatening money. Let's sit down and talk, show them what the law is, remind them of that. But then when they say, okay, we don't care what the state law is, we're still going to do this, they didn't really leave us an alternative. I mean, writing a really strong letter, I'm not sure works when somebody twice goes against state law.
You seem to have thought then that there'd be a compromise. What made you think that they were going to
I didn't know. So I don't think it's a compromise. I think it's just, again, we said, here's what the state law is. It was passed. The State Board of Education then comes back and reaffirms that. 9-0 is what the State Board votes. And so, I don't know that we were thinking so much of a compromise. We just said that's what the law is. And again, ultimately, we have to enforce the law.
But you seem to say that, withholding money might, hurt children at the time. And then a month later, you're withholding money and you're saying that it's not supposed to hurt children?
Well, ultimately, remember, this money won't stay with the state. If Metro doesn't do something to remedy it, we'll send that out to other districts. So it's not money that will ultimately stay away from children in Tennessee. Again, the Metro School Board didn't leave us an option. Again, a nice firm letter. We had already told them, hey, that's against the law. We had said that once. Their attorney said, you can't do that. The State Board of Education voted 9-0. They didn't leave us a lot of alternatives.
But did you have any reason to believe then that, was there any indication given to you that they might reconsider their earlier decision in the second vote to approve the charter?
Well, I didn't have that conversation with the board, but I think that it was pretty clear. Again, every piece of advice they had from their attorney, from the state board, said this is what the law is. And like every other, decisions have consequences. And that's one of the things schools do as well. They teach children decisions have consequences.
Metro School says, since these funds pay for utilities, maintenance, that kind of stuff, transportation, there's no way that this doesn't hurt kids and doesn't hurt classrooms to lose $3.4 million.
Right. I mean, we did the best we could as a state to try to delineate that. Ultimately, obviously, everything a school system does is ultimately for the benefit of a child. I mean, every administrative assistant in the central building, et cetera. So ultimately, that's right, and that's why I think Metro's decision to do that was so harmful.
Governor, clearly there was a lot of surprise at the action the state took. Why didn't you tell them beforehand, if you don't approve this, you will lose this amount of money?
Well, I don't, again, their attorney said there will be consequences to this.
But the consequences were unclear. I mean, if you had said out front you're going to lose 1 month of administrative fees, perhaps it would have acted differently when there was a surprise after the fact.
You know, I don't know that it's our responsibility to say, oh, if you break the law, you know, here's what's going to do. They didn't leave us with an option except to act.
So you weren't talking to them all along trying to resolve this?
Well, I think, you know, our Department of Education was having conversation with them. But again, I'm not sure what there is to resolve.
But
Here's
again,
the law.
If you lay out beforehand, if you do the X, the penalty is Y. The penalty was decided after the fact. You say there's no other choice, but clearly there was other choices to be made.
This was a fairly unprecedented situation. I don't know that we've had a situation where a school board has, you know, willfully said, okay, we know that's the law, but we're going to do something different. Again, even though the state board votes, even though their attorney says, we're in fairly uncharted waters there.